Now, I think it's pretty fascinating how Protestantism came to be. Ultimately, I've been doing some research into this, and what I've heard and what I've read about is that Protestantism was founded by a German theologian and priest in the 16th century. It was at the time in Germany, and of course, obviously, I believe around in Europe. Of course, I'm open to being corrected, of course, but this is what I've read about in this information online and on YouTube videos, is that it is fascinating how I've grown up Protestant. I live in a Protestant country, go to a Protestant church. I have a Protestant family, went to a Protestant school, and I know so little about who founded this, this other branch of Christianity. Of course, the two major branches of Christianity, Catholicism and Protestantism, and of course we have Eastern Orthodoxy as well, and other offshoots too. But ultimately, reading about Martin Luther was fascinating. A 16th century German theologian and priest who stood up to the corruption of the Catholic Church at the time. And so I was given, particularly in my thoughts before reading this information about Martin Luther, I was giving Protestantism a lot of what's the right word, sort of flack, or I was giving Protestantism a bit of a hard time, because just certainly from my experience, I've seen some of the roots of where Protestant churches have gone down to, where they've become sort of lukewarm. They've sort of cowered away from more like important issues and things like that, in the way I feel. Excuse me, guys, I'm still a bit bunged up. But ultimately, when I look into the Protestant Reformation, and in particular this man Martin Luther, he really was. I mean, I've only heard, of course, this one side of him, that he stood up to the corruption and the abuse of the Catholic Church at the time. So what I've read about is that the Catholic Church had they were the only ones who could read the Bible and teach the Bible. And so I believe the Bible at the time was in Latin. And so the regular people couldn't get a hold of the Bible, and it wasn't readily available. It was only available to the priests, and they had to fully trust the priests when doing so. And so this gave sort of a power dynamic on part of the Catholic Church, and so a very big monopoly, and it was very, very powerful. And also there was a very, very corrupt and dodgy practice of indulgences. Now, indulgences is basically when the Catholic Church had this doctrine of, if you pay money to us, then God will forgive your sins because of it. And that's just, it sounds like a joke, but it was a very, harsh reality for the people at the time, in what I've read about. And so Martin Luther, in this case, was a real hero. He had first off, I believe he was hunted down by a few people. I believe he was kidnapped at one point. He was labeled as a heretic. He was, I think, charged to be executed or whatever. And ultimately, it's just fascinating to see. The courageousness, if that's the word, the tenacity of this man. And he made the Bible readily available for people, because at the time he had access to the printing press. Now, the printing press at the time was an incredibly revolutionary piece of kit at the time, and it could very, very rapidly produce documents. And he translated the Bible, I believe, from German and Greek, from Latin to German and Greek. And so he really revolutionized Christianity, this man who made the Bible readily available for people. Ultimately, so that's obviously my thoughts on that. I think, he revolutionized Christianity, and the Reformation should be celebrated. Of course, on this channel, I've made videos on Orthodoxy. Now, I have had a soft spot for Orthodoxy as well after looking into it much deeper. And of course, they all come into clashes as well. And there's, of course, obviously, many points of Protestantism where I've given it a hard time and stuff. And for many reasons, of course, like, why there's so many different denominations, when people have, when we have like 10,000 odd different denominations, probably more now, and all revolving around one book, and it's obviously just disagreements on smaller doctrinal differences. It's not a massive split. We just have different styles, I guess. You know, you can't really compare it to like sort of the Great Schism of 1054, where, you know, we had a massive split. But in Protestantism, I think it's good and bad in a way, because there's obviously division, but also it shows that people are willing to talk about the things of God and to discuss Christianity. So, but also, I just also want to mention this before finishing, that I, of course, have a lot of Orthodox followers, and this subscriber said to me how, I'm trying to think what he said. Of course, I mean, Martin Luther wasn't a perfect man, you know what I mean? I'm going to check his comment, actually, because it's escaped my brain. So, and yes, I just checked, and one of my subscribers, of course, was talking about how they didn't follow the writings of the church fathers, but of course went their own way. Yeah, so obviously that's another point as well. So, I mean, if you were doing a true Reformation, which of course, I mean, it was, you know, that's undeniable, but they didn't go back to the writings of the church fathers in where it truly started. And of course, that is where Orthodoxy sort of gets credit in that sense. But guys, let me know what you think. I'm here to learn more about things. I'm here to have a conversation. I hope you enjoyed listening to my thoughts on this topic. And before this video ends, please comment, like, and share, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Without you guys, I'm an open book. I want to learn more. So let's have a conversation. God bless, and see you guys all in the next video.